Welcome to the modern art world where common sense goes to die. Today, we are exposing 61 people who looked at masterpieces and saw a renovation project. We have angry dads trying to fix crooked lines with a ruler. We have moms demanding refunds for invisible statues. And a guy who actually tried to eat the exhibit for lunch. These complaints are pure, unhinged delusion. You do not want to miss a single one. Let us dive straight into the madness. 1. A general contractor started screaming at a blank white wall labeled Untitled because he thought the museum ran out of paint. He told the terrified curator that he stares at plain drywall for a living and usually gets paid for it. He touched the surface and realized it was just unpainted sheetrock with a fancy frame. He yelled that he has a garage full of this exact masterpiece at home. He demanded his $20 back immediately. He refused to believe that an empty wall was art just because someone put a little card next to it. He claimed this was the biggest scam since they invented hourly labor fees. 2. A furious mother demanded to speak to the manager after seeing a single red square canvas worth $4 million. She shouted that her guest bedroom is painted the exact same color. She told the security guard that she did not pay admission to look at a sample of Benjamin Moore paint. She claimed her toddler could paint a better square with his eyes closed during nap time. She tried to scratch the canvas to see if there was a real painting underneath. She refused to leave until they admitted the artist just rolled a wall and called it a day. She said paying for this is absolute highway robbery. 3. A helpful young man ripped a banana off the wall because he thought someone left their lunch trash behind. He threw the rotting fruit into the recycling bin and scraped the sticky tape residue off the drywall. He told the screaming security guards that he was just doing them a favor. He could not believe that a piece of fruit from the grocery store was worth more than his car. He shouted that he eats this kind of art for breakfast every single day. He demanded they pay him a cleaning fee for removing the garbage. He said he was saving the museum from a fruit fly infestation. 4. An outraged math teacher pulled out a plastic ruler to measure the giant black vertical line painted on the canvas. She gasped loudly when she realized the line was crooked by exactly 3 degrees. She shouted that this was not art, it was a failed geometry homework assignment. She demanded the artist come out so she could give him a failing grade. She told the curator she refuses to pay admission to. Look at a line she could draw better with her eyes closed. She claimed it was an insult to rulers everywhere. She refused to leave until someone straightened the line with a level. 5. A confused sanitation worker tried to drag a pile of black trash bags off a white pedestal near the exit. He thought the night shift janitor forgot to take the dumpster load out. He struggled to lift the bags because they were heavy bronze sculptures. The curator ran over screaming that he was stealing the centerpiece of the exhibit. The man yelled back that it looked exactly like what he threw in the truck this morning. He asked why people were taking photos of garbage bags instead of throwing them away. He said the smell was the only authentic thing about this art. 6. A conspiracy theorist stared at an entirely green monochrome painting for 3 hours without blinking. He was convinced that the green screen was waiting for aliens to land on it. He told the confused tour guide that the image just had not loaded yet. He started tapping the canvas to see if it was a touchscreen that was frozen. He shouted that he sees this exact color when his old television breaks down. He demanded a refund because the movie never started playing. He refused to believe that a single bucket of green paint was the finished product. He said he would wait until the aliens arrived. 7. A sweet grandmother bent down to pick up a pair of eyeglasses lying on the gallery floor. She thought some poor soul had dropped them and could not see where they were going. The crowd gasped as she picked up the glasses and wiped the dust off the lenses. A hip art critic started crying because she ruined the spontaneous installation. The grandmother told him to stop crying over dropped accessories. She tried to hand the glasses to the security guard for the lost and found. She said she was not going to leave a tripping hazard on the floor just for the sake of culture. 8. A desperate father ran toward the porcelain toilet displayed in the center of the gallery room. He started unbuckling his belt because he really needed to use the restroom. The security guard jumped in front of him and yelled that this was a non-interactive sculpture. The dad shouted that a toilet is only art if it flushes properly. He inspected the pipes and told the curator the installation was not up to code. He said he has 3 of these art pieces in his house and he uses them every day. He demanded to know where the real bathroom was before he made his own performance art. 9. A busy stockbroker screamed at a television screen playing a loop of white paint slowly drying. He checked his watch 5 times in 1 minute. He told the room that he makes money faster than this paint dries. He yelled that he could go home and paint his garage if he wanted this kind of excitement. He asked if the video ever speeds up or if there is a plot twist at the end. He demanded his money back for wasted time. He said, watching grass grow would be an action movie compared to this. He refused to accept that boredom was the artistic statement. 10. A professional carpet cleaner tried to scrub the abstract scribble off the canvas with a wet wipe. He was convinced that a muddy dog had run through the gallery and ruined the painting. He told the artist that he could get those paw prints out for $50. The artist explained it was an expression of inner turmoil. The cleaner laughed and said it looked like his golden retriever after a rainy day in the park. He shouted that his dog is an artist too if this is the standard. He refused to pay for a painting that needed a bath. 11. A party planner started aggressively popping the balloons in a room full of floating helium balloons with cut strings. She thought the janitor was just too lazy to clean up after a kid's birthday party. She told the horrified curator that wrinkled balloons are a choking hazard and not a masterpiece. She shouted that she charges clients to remove this kind of mess from banquet halls. She stomped on a silver balloon and demanded to know where the cake was hidden. She refused to believe people paid to walk through someone else's trash. She said the only artistic thing here was the audacity to charge admission. 12. A dentist frantically started scooping up the giant pile of individually wrapped candies on the floor. He screamed that this exhibit was a public health crisis waiting to happen. He told the parents in the room that sugar is the enemy of art and teeth. He tried to confiscate the candy before a child could eat it and get a cavity. The artist yelled that the pile represented love and loss. The dentist shouted back that it represented a root canal and a bill for $2,000. He refused to leave until he flossed the sculpture's teeth. 13. A puzzle champion furiously grabbed a pen and started filling in the framed New York Times crossword puzzle. She noticed the previous artist had filled in cat for a 4-letter word meaning dog. She shouted that cheating at puzzles is not a talent, it is a crime against logic. She told the security guard she was fixing the errors for free. She claimed that hanging a half-finished Tuesday puzzle on a wall is just lazy. She demanded the museum provide a Sunday puzzle if they wanted real art. She refused to stop until she corrected every single spelling mistake. 14. A wealthy banker waved his checkbook at an empty glass case labeled Invisible Sculpture. He asked the curator if he was buying the air or the glass box. He laughed when he saw the $18,000 certificate of authenticity. He shouted that he has a whole mansion full of invisible art at home. He told the crowd he was wearing an invisible Rolex right now. He demanded to weigh the sculpture to make sure he wasn't getting ripped off. He refused to pay 5 figures for the emperor's new clothes. He said he would pay with invisible money. 15. A dry cleaner tried to hang his coat on the empty metal hanger, dangling from the ceiling wire. He thought the museum had installed a very convenient coat check in the middle of the room. The security guard slapped his hand away and said the hanger was a symbol of fragility. The dry cleaner shouted that it was a symbol of a wire hanger he gives away for free with every shirt. He told the curator he has thousands of these masterpieces in his shop. He demanded to know why his laundry business wasn't considered a museum. He refused to respect a hanger without a shirt. 16. A narcissist spent 45 minutes fixing her hair in the floor-to-ceiling mirror wall exhibit. She thought the museum had finally installed a proper dressing room for selfies. She shouted at other visitors to move out of her frame because they were ruining her shot. She told the curator this was the most beautiful exhibit because it featured her face. She realized halfway through that everyone was staring at it, her and not the mirror. She demanded they pay her a modeling fee for being the art. She refused to leave until she got the perfect lighting for her Instagram story. 17. A confused painter squinted at an all-white canvas that supposedly had a slightly different shade of white in the center. He pulled out a color swatch book from his pocket to compare the shades. He shouted that both whites were just eggshell number 4 from the hardware store. He told the artist that he missed a spot in the corner. He claimed that he paints ceilings with more color variation than this. He demanded a refund because He gets snow blindness for free in the winter. He refused to believe that 50 Shades of White was a real concept. 18. A terrified tourist sneezed loudly and watched a fragile glass sculpture shatter into a million pieces. He froze as the entire room turned to look at him in horror. He shouted that he didn't even touch it. The sound waves did all the work. He told the weeping artist that he should have used safety glass if he wanted it to survive flu season. He tried to kick the broken shards under a rug to hide the evidence. He demanded to know why they put breakable things in a room full of people. He refused to pay for a sneeze that was an act of nature. 19. A HVAC repairman stood on a ladder trying to fix the exposed air conditioning vents labeled breathing architecture. He thought the ductwork had fallen out of the ceiling and needed immediate repair. He told the curator that loose vents are a safety violation, not a philosophy. He shouted that he could see the dust bunnies inside the so-called art. He pulled out his drill to secure the panel back to the wall. He demanded to know why they framed the building's lungs instead of hiding them. He refused to get down until the ventilation was up to code. 20. A tired businessman poked the performance artist who had been standing motionless for 4 hours. He thought the poor guy had fallen asleep, standing up, or died of boredom. He shouted for a medic because nobody can be that still without having a stroke. He told the crowd that he stands this still during boring meetings every Monday. He offered the artist a cup of coffee to wake him up. He demanded to know if the artist got a bathroom break or if that was part of the show. He refused to believe that doing nothing was a career. 21. A patriotic tourist from Philadelphia started screaming when he could not find the marble statue of Rocky Balboa. He told the terrified tour guide that he traveled 3,000 miles to see the Italian stallion, not a bunch of old bulls. He refused to look at the ancient Greek gods because they clearly did not know how to box. He shouted that real art wears boxing shorts and fights for freedom. He demanded a refund because the museum had too much culture and not enough uppercuts. He claimed that if the statue cannot throw a left hook, then it is just a heavy paperweight. 22. An avid hiker laughed hysterically at a plain gray river rock sitting on a pristine white pedestal. He told the serious curator that he has a shoe full of this exact art right now. He shouted that he kicks masterpieces like this out of his way on the trail every weekend. He grabbed the rock and offered to trade it for a shinier one he found in the parking lot. He demanded to know why a stone worth $0 was insured for thousands. He refused to pay admission to see something nature made for free in the dirt. 23. A stressed remote worker started crying in front of a 45-minute silent video of an empty wooden chair. He told the security guard that this looked exactly like his waiting room on Zoom before a meeting. He shouted that he came to the museum to escape his home office, not to relive it. He waited 20 minutes for someone to sit in the chair, but nobody ever came. He demanded the artist add a cat filter or a funny background to make it interesting. He refused to call it art because it just felt like a canceled meeting. 24. A hungry truck driver tried to pry a single slice of white bread off the gallery wall. He told the screaming curator that he just wanted to make a quick sandwich before his shift. He was shocked to learn the stale crust was a statement on consumerism. He shouted that wasting food is not art, it is a tragedy for lunchtime. He offered to replace the masterpiece with a fresh slice of Wonder Bread from his truck. He demanded to know if the nail was also edible. He refused to respect a snack he could not eat. 25. A meticulous carpenter pulled out his hammer to straighten an old rusty nail bent into a vague shape. He thought the maintenance crew had done a terrible job fixing the wall. He told the artist that he should be ashamed of his workmanship. He shouted that a bent nail is a mistake, not a sculpture. He offered to teach the museum staff how to drive a nail straight for free. He demanded they throw the scrap metal in the trash where it belonged. He refused to believe that tetanus was a valid artistic theme for a high-class gallery. 26. A confused farmer stared at a life-size chicken statue looking at a mannequin in tighty-whities. He scratched his head and told the curator that his coop looks exactly like this on a Saturday night. He shouted that he usually chases chickens away from his underwear, not toward them. He asked if the chicken was judging the mannequin's fashion choices. He demanded to know why city people pay to see poultry in awkward situations. He refused to accept this as culture because on the farm, this is just a weird Tuesday morning. He said the chicken looked fake anyway. 27. A union bricklayer started mixing invisible mortar next to a stack of 500 red bricks. He thought the museum was finally building that new wing they talked about. He told the security guard to grab a trowel and help him finish the job. He shouted that leaving bricks in a pile is just laziness, not minimalism. He claimed his uncle has a bigger pile of art in his backyard for free. He demanded to be paid union rates if he was going to look at construction materials. He refused to leave until the wall was built properly and safely. 28. A panicked police officer drew his flashlight on an empty picture frame hanging on the wall. He shouted that a robbery had just taken place right under their noses. He told the curator to lock down the building because the painting was missing. He started dusting the frame for fingerprints to catch the thief. He refused to believe that the emptiness was the art. He claimed that selling a frame without a picture is like selling a donut hole without the donut. He demanded to file a police report for the missing paint. He said he would catch the perpetrator. 29. A coupon-clipping mom burst out laughing at a single Campbell's soup can sitting on a shelf. She told the tour group that she has 12 of these in her pantry right now. She shouted that she bought her art on sale for 99 cents at Walmart. She checked the expiration date to see if the art had gone bad. She demanded to know if she could heat up the exhibit for lunch. She refused to admire a label she sees every time she makes dinner for her kids. She said her pantry is apparently a world-class museum worth millions. 30. An insomniac screamed and covered his ears in a room completely silent except for one ticking metronome. He told the artist that this sound is exactly what keeps him awake at 3 in the morning. He shouted that this was not art, it was a psychological torture device. He tried to grab the swinging arm to make the ticking stop. He demanded a white noise machine to drown out the rhythm immediately. He refused to stay in a room that sounded like a bomb was about to go off. He said silence would have been a much better masterpiece. 31. An exhausted emergency room nurse stopped dead in her tracks in front of a framed blue surgical mask. She started twitching uncontrollably because she thought she was back at work during a double shift. She told the curator she has a box of these masterpieces in her car right now. She shouted that this is not art, it is a souvenir from a nightmare we all want to forget. She tried to smash the glass because she needed a mask for the subway ride home. She demanded to know why medical supplies were behind glass. She refused to applaud a piece of fabric. 32. A frustrated laundry maid screamed with joy when she saw a single white athletic sock under a spotlight. She told the security guard that she had been looking for this missing sock for 6 years. She shouted that the museum stole it from her dryer lint trap. She pulled the matching sock out of her purse to prove she was the rightful owner. She demanded they open the glass case so she could finally fold the pair together. She refused to believe it was a statement on loneliness. She said it was just a statement on lost laundry. 33. A grumpy electrician pulled out his voltage tester in front of a light bulb that flickered every 7 seconds. He told the artist that he had a loose neutral wire and this was a fire hazard. He shouted that his childhood Christmas lights worked better than this garbage. He offered to fix the connection for free so the art would actually work. He demanded to know if the flickering was intentional or if they just forgot to pay the electric bill. He refused to stare at a strobe light that gave him a migraine. He said darkness was better. 34. A confused real estate agent walked into a completely empty room with a sign saying, "This is the art." She started measuring the square footage because she thought the property was for sale. She told the curator that the open concept was nice, but it lacked furniture. She shouted that selling nothing for admission fees is the greatest scam in history. She demanded to know where the actual art was hiding. She refused to accept that space itself was the exhibit. She claimed her empty garage looks exactly like this. She said she wouldn't pay rent for air. 35. A preschool teacher burst into tears of laughter at a child's finger painting taped to the wall. She told the fancy art critic that she throws away better art than this every single Friday. She shouted that the museum has turned into an expensive daycare center. She pointed out that the artist clearly ate some of the paste while making this. She demanded to hang her students' work next to it for a comparison. She refused to respect a masterpiece that was made during snack time. She said the fridge magnet was missing from the corner. 36. A grumpy old man shined his flashlight on a black canvas inside a black frame. He thought the power had gone out in the building. He told the security guard that he paid to see pictures, not the inside of a closet. He shouted that this looked like his television screen when the cable bill is unpaid. He demanded a refund because he could see darkness at home for free by closing his eyes. He refused to believe there was a painting there at all. He said the artist just dipped the whole thing in tar and quit. 37. A forensic accountant squinted at a framed receipt for buying white paint. He started auditing the math because the sales tax looked suspicious. He told the curator that writing off art supplies is not the same as making art. He shouted that he has a wallet full of these masterpieces from the grocery store. He pointed out that the artist overpaid for the brushes. He demanded to see the return policy for this exhibit. He refused to admire a shopping list that wasn't even tax deductible. He said this was just proof that the artist went shopping. 38. A high school geometry teacher pulled out his protractor to check the perfect equilateral triangle drawn in pencil. He gasped when he measured the angles and found one was off by a fraction. He shouted that the hypotenuse was all wrong and gave the wall an F-. He told the artist to go back to 10th grade math class. He demanded a giant eraser to fix the calculation immediately. He refused to call a simple shape a masterpiece when his students do it better. He said Pythagoras was rolling in his grave at this attempt. 39. A tired librarian collapsed on a bench in front of an artist statement that was longer than the actual piece. She told the curator she came to look at pictures, not to read a novel on the wall. She shouted that the essay was more creative than the tiny rocket described. She started correcting the grammar with a red pen she found in her purse. She demanded an audiobook version because her eyes were hurting. She refused to read 3,000 words about why a stick is art. She said the writer needed an editor immediately. 40. A panicked business owner started sweating profusely in front of a pile of shredded tax documents. He thought the IRS had raided his office and put his secrets on display. He told the security guard that shredding evidence is a felony, not an art form. He shouted that he could see his social security number on a piece of confetti. He tried to glue the papers back together to see what the artist was hiding. He demanded a lawyer instead of a tour guide. He refused to believe that tax fraud was a valid theme for a museum. 41. A distressed gardener rushed over to the corner of the gallery with a watering can he found in the bathroom. He saw the real houseplant slowly dying and thought it was a botanical emergency. He told the curator that plant abuse is a crime, not an installation. He shouted that the poor fern needed sunlight and water immediately. He started pruning the brown leaves while the artist screamed at him to stop. He demanded they move the plant to a windowsill. He refused to watch a living thing die just for the sake of metaphor. He said he was saving a life. 42. A paranoid doomsday prepper tried to stash the single, unopened can of Spam into his backpack. He thought the museum was a secret supply drop for the apocalypse. He told the security guard that processed meat is worth more than gold when the zombies come. He shouted that putting food on a pedestal is a waste of calories. He offered to trade a flashlight for the salty treat. He demanded to know the expiration date on the bottom of the can. He refused to leave the valuable protein behind. He said meat art is peak America, but survival is more important. 43. An angry father started poking the broken flip phone from 2005 displayed under glass. He told his embarrassed son that this was the exact phone he lost in a taxi 20 years ago. He shouted that he still had snake high scores on that device. He demanded the curator charge it up so he could retrieve his old contacts. He refused to believe that his old trash was now a retro, tech nostalgia piece. He claimed he wanted his SIM card back immediately. He said paying to see e-waste is ridiculous when he has a drawer full of it at home. 44. A frantic germaphobe sprayed a can of Lysol all over the wall painted with a random sneeze of multiple colors. She thought a sick person had exploded in the hallway without covering their mouth. She told the curator that this exhibit was a biohazard zone. She shouted that she could see the germs multiplying on the canvas. She handed a tissue to the artist and told him to cover his nose next time. She demanded a hazmat suit for everyone entering the room. She refused to appreciate a masterpiece that looked like a flu symptom. She said, "Bless you" to the wall. 45. An exhausted grandmother sat down heavily on the ordinary wooden folding chair in the center of the room. She thought the museum finally provided a place to rest her swollen ankles. The security guard yelled that she was sitting on the art. She shouted that a chair is made for sitting, not for staring. She told the curator she has played bingo on chairs exactly like this for 40 years. She demanded they bring her a cushion if they expected her to be part of the performance. She refused to stand up until her feet stopped hurting. She said, "Sitting is not art." 46. A thirsty jogger tried to grab the empty plastic water bottle with the label removed. He thought someone had left their trash on the nice clean pedestal. He told the screaming artist that he needed to recycle this immediately to save the turtles. He shouted that dehydration is not a commentary, it is a medical condition. He crushed the bottle flat and looked for a blue bin. He demanded a refund for seeing a piece of litter he could find in any gutter. He refused to believe that empty plastic was worth thousands. He said hydration was the only real message here. 47. A traumatized father flinched violently when he saw the single red Lego brick standing alone on the floor. He instinctively hopped on one foot because he felt phantom pain in his heel. He told the curator that this object is a weapon of mass destruction in the dark. He shouted that his living room floor is a museum of pain every night. He tried to sweep the brick away to protect innocent feet. He demanded to know if the artist had children or just hated pedestrians. He refused to respect a toy that has caused him so much midnight suffering. 48. A furious driver started tearing at the frame holding an old laminated parking ticket. He recognized the address on the ticket and thought the city was mocking him personally. He told the security guard that he came here to forget about his debts, not to frame them. He shouted that a $50 fine is not fine art. He tried to pay the ticket right there to make the exhibit go away. He demanded to speak to the traffic warden who curated this mess. He refused to admire a piece of paper that ruined his day. He said this was administrative violence. 49. A confused electrician started checking the breaker box in a room lit only by phone flashlights. He thought the museum had suffered a major power outage. He told the visitors to stay calm and follow him to the emergency exit. He shouted that crowdsourced lighting is just a fancy word for not paying the utility bill. He offered to lend the curator a generator to get the lights back on. He demanded a flashlight of his own so he could inspect the wiring. He refused to stumble around in the dark for culture. He said this was a safety hazard. 50. A seasoned homicide detective started taping off the area around the fake blood splatter on the white wall. He thought he had stumbled onto an active crime scene. He told the terrified tourists to step back so he could preserve the evidence. He shouted for a forensic team to analyze the DNA on the canvas. He poked the red paint and realized it was just corn syrup and dye. He demanded the artist be arrested for wasting police time. He refused to believe that a horror movie rejection was a masterpiece. He said the only crime here was the ticket price. 51. A hungry construction worker licked the glass dome covering the half-eaten Twinkie. He thought it was a vending machine that got stuck. He told the curator that leaving a snack unfinished is a sin against sugar. He shouted that the expiration date on that cake is longer than his marriage. He tried to lift the glass because he wanted to finish the job for free. He demanded to know who took the first bite. He refused to pay admission to watch a Twinkie decompose slowly. He said he has a box of these in his truck for lunch. He claimed the cream filling was the only culture here. 52. A stressed delivery driver tried to scan the barcode on the unfolded Amazon box lying on the floor. He thought he had dropped a package during his route. He told the security guard that he sees thousands of these flat boxes every single day. He shouted that cardboard is not art, it is just recycling, waiting to happen. He kicked the box to see if there was anything inside. He demanded to know if the prime tape was archival quality. He refused to admire a box that didn't have a product inside it. He said this was just lazy shipping. 53. A frustrated father crawled under a bench, chasing a single AA battery rolling across the floor. He thought it had fallen out of his son's favorite toy truck. He told the artist that a battery on the floor is a tripping hazard, not a masterpiece. He shouted that kinetic energy is just a fancy word for dropping things. He grabbed the battery to check if it had any charge left. He demanded to know if it was Duracell or a cheap generic brand. He refused to applaud a cylinder that runs out of power. He said he needed this for the remote at home. 54. A furious Karen started sticking her own yellow notes on the wall covered in complaints. She thought this was the official customer service feedback station. She wrote that the coffee was cold and the ticket price was robbery. She shouted that she wanted to speak to the manager of the wall. She told the curator that reading other people's whining is not culture. She demanded a pen so she could correct the spelling mistakes on the other notes. She refused to leave until her complaint was framed front and center. She said this was the only honest exhibit in the whole building. 55. A confused road worker tried to pick up the old parking cone painted gold. He thought the city had finally upgraded their safety equipment for the night shift. He told the security guard that a gold cone is still just a piece of rubber. He shouted that he blocks traffic with these things every morning for minimum wage. He scratched the paint to see if it was real gold underneath. He demanded to take it home for his driveway to stop people turning around. He refused to believe that street gear was worth millions. He said, "It was just a traffic violation." 56. A tourist from Texas took off his hat and bowed to the mannequin wearing only a cowboy hat. He told the blushing curator that in his hometown this is considered formal wear. He shouted that the mannequin had better legs than he did. He asked where the rest of the outfit was or if the cowboy had lost a poker game. He demanded they put some Wranglers on the poor plastic man. He refused to look at a naked cowboy without a guitar. He said this was Texas minimalism at its finest, but he preferred clothes. 57. A crying child tried to catch the water dripping from the frozen snowman melting inside the gallery. He thought his friend Frosty was dying a slow and painful death. He screamed at the curator to turn the air conditioning down to 0 immediately. He shouted that climate change art is too sad for a Saturday afternoon. He tried to hug the slush to keep it cold. He demanded a mop to save the snowman's life before he turned into a puddle. He refused to watch a tragedy unfold on a pedestal. He said water is not a sculpture. 58. A Hollywood talent agent handed his business card to the empty pedestal. The sign said the sculpture left for creative differences. He thought the invisible artist was looking for new representation. He shouted that he could get the empty space a better deal at the Louvre. He told the crowd that this was the biggest diva behavior he had ever seen. He demanded to interview the sculpture's lawyer. He refused to believe the pedestal was empty. He said the sculpture was probably just in his trailer. He claimed he represents plenty of empty suits in Los Angeles. 59. A desperate man banging on the bathroom door stopped to look at the single sheet of toilet paper framed on the wall. He told the guard that this was cruel and unusual punishment. He shouted that in an emergency, every square counts. He tried to break the glass because he really needed to use the facilities. He demanded to know if it was 2-ply or that cheap sandpaper stuff. He refused to admire a hygiene product that was out of reach. He said wiping out is not art. He claimed the museum was flushing money down the toilet. 60. A confused teenager swiped his finger across the dial of the old rotary phone. He asked the curator where the touchscreen was hiding. He shouted that the cord was tangled just like his headphones in his pocket. He told his mom that this must be a dinosaur communication device. He tried to say "Hey Siri" to the handset, but nothing happened. He demanded to know how to send a text message with a spinning wheel. He refused to use a phone that was attached to a wall. He said communication breakdown is just bad Wi-Fi. 61. An angry patron demanded a full refund after reading the sign saying, "The art is in your imagination." He shouted that his imagination is full of unpaid bills and anxiety. He told the curator that he paid $20 to see real things, not his own thoughts. He claimed that if he wanted to use his imagination, he would stay home on the couch. He demanded the museum pay him for doing the mental work. He refused to look at a blank room and pretend it was beautiful. He said, "My imagination wants my money back right now." Well, there you have it. Proof that your dirty laundry could be worth millions if you just frame it right. If this gallery of Karen meltdowns cracked you up, smash that like button and subscribe to Ridiculous Complaints immediately. Turn on notifications so you never miss the chaos. Now tell me in the comments, what is the absolute worst masterpiece you have ever seen in real life? A blank canvas? A banana? Let me know your story below and I will see you in the next video.